Hello everyone, and welcome back to another one of Crow's Greenfoot lessons. Today we are on Asteroids Part 3. We're going to be adding in a counter up here and showing you how you can add points when you fire the projectile. This is going to be a great way to be able to access multiple classes, referencing the projectile. When it hits the debris, can we add the counter? So all three are different actors, and so you're going to have to be able to reference and actually communicate through the world to access some of those things. So what I have added to my game is another level of breaking up the debris. You're welcome to do that. All I did there was in my projectile, I added a debris 2, and I created this debris 2 class, and instead of splitting it into and making the image twice as small, I did divided by 4 on the width and divided by 4 on the height. And so you can see that in debris 1, whereas the last video I just had it remove object this, I've decided that I'm going to add debris 2 in, two debris 2s, and then I'm going to remove just remove debris 2 once you hit debris 2. So if you look into my debris 2 class, I get the image and I scale it down to divided by 4 and divided by 4, where the original debris 1, I just divided it by 2. And then I set its original rotation in the constructor class, so it won't keep getting the rotation during the act method, just one time in the constructor class. And I get a random number for it. So going forward, let's go ahead and start creating our counter. So in order to create our counter, we need to create a class for counter. This will not be a space actor. It won't move around or rapid edge or anything like that. So we're going to enter our code. And so in our counter, we're going to need a constructor class, because we're going to have our counter show up, and it's going to need to be an image before the act method is run. If I added in the counter right now, it would be unspecified or just a green foot is what they do if it's not a specified image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set it knows that there wants to be an image here, but we're going to need to tell it. We're going to set the image to a new green foot image. And if you look in your documentation, which is a great tool that you need to always be looking at, you can go to Greenfoot image and see how we can create our Greenfoot image. Okay, and so this is the Greenfoot image that we're going to be using. You see all these different constructor methods that you can use with the Greenfoot image. You can choose any one of these to do. But they all, so it creates an empty transparent image with a specified size. Each one of these has their own thing, but what we're going to do is create an image with a given string drawn as text. So we're going to create something called score. That'll be our text, and then it's going to have a foreground that's a color and a background that's a color. Okay. Now, depending on what version of Greenfoot you have, you might have different things that you need to add here, and I will help you as you go here. So what it said is that it needs to have a string. So if it's a string, you need to put it in quotes, and we're going to call our score and then have a space. And then in order to add a number to your string, we're going to add a variable score, and we're going to need to, let's go ahead and create int score, and obviously our score is going to start at 0. Okay. Now, ignore the errors right now. Now it wants a foreground and a background color. So our foreground color dot blue, comma, color dot white. And you need to make them in all capital letters. That's just something that it says in the documentation that you want it all capital letters. And then if you are on, I think, any version 2.4.2 or earlier, any version 2, you're going to have to import java.awt.color with a capital C and then semicolon. Now, for the newer versions, they're going to have an error pop up. Hey, you don't need that. So you won't need that. Now, I am sure I have missed something, so let's see if I can figure it out. Holy cow, that's a lot of different things. Let me pause this. Okay, so to figure this out, you need to go into Greenfoot, and I missed something. So I know I missed something. Now, you have this string. Oh, it says an int size, so it needs to know the size of the text. And so I've just missed something in here. I need to say the size of the text. That'll just be the height. And that should fix your counter. Now you need to test it. So now when you throw it in, the score will come up, and you can check, inspect the score. All right, 75, 40 about. Okay, I don't need to have it exact. A couple pixels won't change much. So I can go in and add my counter, my score counter. Now, the thing is this score counter needs to change. So in order for something to happen when we push run, it always has to be in the act method. So we have to put the same thing in the act method. This makes the image happen prior to the act method getting run. This makes it change as your score goes up, or as your score changes, so that it happens during the act method. Okay? Now, when we go into world, you're going to want to add in the counter in a very specific spot. Okay? So just like here, you have all these that get added in, and you can save the world. Just add it in and save the world. So let's go ahead and do that now. But we're going to have to do something to it. So we're going to add it in to where we want it. Okay. You're going to save the world. Now, our rocks are still getting added in randomly. Everything's good. I'm going to get rid of this set location. And I'm going to actually move this. Well, let's make sure this is how we want it. Score is not exactly where we want it. Okay, so let's go back to that 75. 75 is a good X value. There we go. Okay, and you can move it around how you want. But the most important thing is you need to get this and cut it, or copy and paste it up here. Because what this is doing in your prepare method is it is only making it available as the image in your prepare method. So this will reference inside the prepare method this image, and it will only be used in the constructor, so before the act method gets run. Okay, so we want our counter to change, so if we have it in this constructor, it's not going to change when we push run. So we need to make it so that it's able to change. Okay, now going forward, we are going to need to have our counter. We're going to need to create a method so that the score can change. Okay, now public void add score. So right now we have the method. This is a method we can call that will add the score. We just need to know where to use it. Okay, well, when are we going to use it? Well, we're going to use it when our projectile hits a rock, the rock's debris, or the debris's debris. So we're going to use it, and you're just going to get 1 point each time. So score will plus 1 time. So we're going to do 1 add score every time. Okay, now, if you guys can imagine this for a second, we are going to use snipping tool real quick. Now, the only way for an actor, so if my projectile hits debris, and then I want once it hits the debris, for it to communicate to the counter, or if I'm in my projectile class, if I just wanted my projectile to communicate with my counter, there's no connection here. Okay, and we can't always inherit everything, and even if you could, you can't always communicate between actors, okay? So in this case, we have to instead have our projectile go through our world and communicate, say what world we're talking about, and then have our counter be able to get information about the counter from the world, and we can add to our counter. So the projectile hits the debris. Okay, when it hits the debris, we're able to talk to our world, and then our world can hit our counter. So imagine our world. So we have our world class, we have actor, 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 actor. Imagine if it was formatted like this. Our world can communicate with all of these, but these can't talk to each other. So we have to go through our world class in order for this to communicate with this. We have to go through our world class and communicate. So if our projectile wants to communicate and change our counter, if our counter wants to change because of something the projectile did, we have to go through the world class. Okay, I hope that makes sense, and I'm going to explain that as I go as well. Okay, so in our projectile, we need to describe what world we're talking about. Okay, so we're going to be talking about our my world. So my world, and I'm going to call it my world, equals my world get world. So basically this, and I say world so many times I start looking at it weird and wondering if I'm spelling it right. But my get world, we're accessing the information from this specific world. Okay, that's all we're doing. So we're in our projectile, we're making sure that we're accessing all the code that we can from this world. Okay, and now we need to prepare this world to have the counter be able to get the information from the counter through the projectile. So this projectile will be able to say, okay, I'm going to go into my world and get my counter information right here. So it would be counter equals get counter is what I'm going to want. Now, the problem is we have not created a getter counter method so that we can't access get counter yet. Okay? And it'll actually be my world dot get counter. So because this has all of this information has been renamed as my world, you just plug in my world dot get counter here, and once we create our getter method for our counter, this will work. So we go into my world, we create a public counter get counter, allowing us to access our counter information. And we are going to return the counter information, but from what instance object or what class are we going to access it from? Well, specifically this counter right here, and this counter is getting used in our world. But if we still had this counter down here, if you still have a counter equals new counter down here, it will ignore all of this information, this getter information up here, and everything will seem like it's working perfectly besides the counter adding up. It just won't add up. The counter will be in there, there won't be any errors. And so if your counter is just not working, but everything is no errors, but the counter's not adding up, you have a counter equals new counter somewhere in here that you need to get rid of, and you just need to have it up outside of the prepare method, outside of the constructor, so that we can adjust it and it can change as the act method's going. Okay, so we have our add score and our counter. In our world, we have our getter method. So let's go back to the projectile, and now when we compile, we have no errors. Okay, so now our projectile has the ability to access the counter's information. So now we need to do access the counter's information. Since we've renamed the ability to access the counter's information to lowercase counter, that's all we need to put. And then we can call the method of add score that we have created in our counter class. We created this add score. and we can just throw that in there and it will adjust it by accessing it. So we created the ability to access information from our world, and we called it my world. Okay, ability to access information from our world. Ability to get information from our counter. Okay, so we called that counter. So now we're able to access information from our world, access specifically the get counter information. So we're accessing the counter, and then now all we have to do is put counter.addScore, and so it's a trickle down effect. Okay, so access information from the world, access information from the world, and access specifically our counter information. And then through our counter information, we're going to change our add score. So now all we have to do is add score. You can copy that and paste it here and paste it here. And now every time you hit an asteroid, you're getting points. You're adding score. Okay? And I need to slow down. Okay, and then if I have 28 points, I have destroyed all the asteroids. Okay, if you want to break that down or add more, you're welcome to do that. But now you can say, you can do this wherever in your counter. Okay, because your counter is going to stay there, but you can do public, you can do your uWin, public void uWin, and you can throw in your uWin, and you can go if score equals 28, because you're not gonna, whoops, no semicolon, because you're not gonna equal 29 or anything else unless you have a different amount of asteroids. So test that first. You can get world dot add object new u win, and you can add in your new uWin at half the width and half the height. So 750, 600, 375, 300, and we need to create a uWin. Since we've just created a counter on our own, let's go ahead and create a uWin with our own text. Okay, so designing our uWin screen right here. So public uWin, set image, new green foot image. We're not going to do score. We're going to do uWin. Okay, we're going to make the text a lot bigger, 80. We're going to change the color to red and green, sure. Could choose black, you can choose whatever you want. There is an error. New uWin, open close parentheses. My apologies. Let's try it out. Okay, I need to get better at this. 28, didn't put it in the act method. You know when that error will happen if you do not put it in the act method. So, counter, uWin, it's just storing the uWin. Put it in the act method. I am going to make this quite a bit easier on myself. Stack these guys up, projectiles, a lot of them, and then I'm going to surround them with projectiles. Hopefully that'll do the trick. uWin. Excellent. Very good. So next time we're going to create a health bar. We're going to use that health bar to get damage and get hit. Right now, you can just score and win. So we're going to have a you lose screen and a health bar. But until next time, thanks for watching Crow's Programming Course.